Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome my guest, Stephen Chun. Hey Stephen, how are you?
Hey Blair, thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you so much for saying yes to coming on. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited to hear your story. We were just talking about before recording. I know that you've had a long day.
Yeah.
Yes. Stephen, before he tells us what he does, he's also a new dad. Congratulations.
Thank
How
you.
old is your son?
He is 5 months now.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you were like, it's just starting.
I know. And it's for the most part he's been a pretty good baby, but I
Yeah.
think he's starting to teeth.
Oh.
So the past week it's just been sleepless nights and him crying, and then as a new parent you're trying to do everything you can, and you're trying to not break his sleep cycle, or
Yes.
all the work you've already put into. But it's
Exactly.
it breaks your heart not to bring your baby into bed or sleep with him, but
Oh, you sound like a great dad, Steven.
I try. It's tough.
I know.
It's hard.
But it gets easier,
Yeah.
but different.
Hmm.
Different. But that's really congratulations again. So even more so, I'm really grateful for your time. I know that it's valuable. It's funny as you're talking, I'm like, yes, and all the moms and dads are like, yes, like I remember those times. And then everyone that's single and has no clue what you're talking about, like
Oh
I
yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, no. They don't know what
But
sleep deprivation is until you have a
yes,
baby.
yes, they will know one day. But anyways, all that to say, again, I'm really grateful for you and the time that you're giving me to share your story today. So, Stephen, I won't delay it any longer. What is it that you do?
So I am by profession I'm a Tae Kwon Do Master instructor, and I teach martial arts for a living.
So crazy.
Yeah.
Only because, I mean, okay, so I think I told you this. My son does taekwondo,
Hmm.
and he doesn't love it,
Yeah.
but he's okay with it.
Yeah.
And my son's personality, he's very disciplined. So it's we've talked about it recently. He's like, okay, I don't want, I want to finish. He says he wants to
Hmm.
finish and get, finish the belts. And he says after that, I'd like to talk about quitting. And he's 6. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I love taekwondo.
Yeah.
I didn't. I did it till I don't know. I won't even say maybe yellow. I think I just did yellow. Honestly, I
Just
did it for
your first belt.
yeah. I think I did 2 or 3 months.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't really care about the sport much at all, to be honest, until
Hmm.
my son started doing it.
Hmm.
And then we went to this taekwondo tournament
Yeah.
maybe it was last year, early
Uh-huh.
last year, maybe April or something. And just because I wanted Eli to get excited, I wanted him to see it's not just pumse and
Yeah.
testing. There's
Uh-huh.
more to it, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That that it was crazy.
Oh yeah, it's a different atmosphere. It's a
I
different environment.
I was like, you guys, if you've never been to one, it's really fun. It was so fun.
Oh yeah.
And then we saw these girls spar.
Hmm.
I think as they were small, they were young, but they were vicious.
Yeah. I always say to my wife, girls are my girl students are
Uh-huh.
way better and tougher than my boy students, and it shows.
I mean, they one girl just kept getting hits,
Hmm.
and you could see she wanted to cry so badly,
Hmm.
but she just kept going and kept going. I was like, oh, this is insane to me.
Yeah.
The determination, the self-control at such a young age. Anyways, I love taekwondo now, and I'm excited to hear more about your job. So what does I mean, I can only assume, right? And I know what I can Eli's master, he is nonstop, I feel
Hmm.
like daily. But what is your typical workday look like then?
So I get to the school usually around like 1:30, 2 p.m.
Hmm.
and then just answering phone calls, checking up on emails. It's just a bunch of admin stuff, which is the boring part.
Hmm.
What I would say that's like the business aspect of us running a martial arts program.
Okay.
And then around 3:34 is when students start to show up. And then we have classes from ages anywhere from 3, which is my youngest student, and then 76 is which is my oldest student. Yeah.
76 years
Yeah, he's 70.
old?
Yeah, he started with me when he was 74. So he's been training with me for 2 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Okay, is
incredible.
it I'm just really curious. Like, can I ask what his ethnicity is?
He's white.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
No, he's a retired periodontist, and his previous life was he did Ironmans, marathons, like
Okay.
incredible like athletically and just
Wow.
hard worker, but then age catches up and
Mm,
he couldn't run, swim, and bike like that anymore. So then he walked into my school one day and he was like, I've heard this is good for you. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, how old is too old? And I was like, sir, I don't know, but we'll find out. So then
that's great.
he joined and then he loves it till this day. And he teaches me a lot of things that I don't know when even though I'm
Wow.
like his master instructor,
Yeah.
but he just has it's like talking to an older person who has just so much wisdom.
Yeah.
So I enjoy teaching his classes and I do some one-on-ones with him just because we
Mm,
have to go at his pace and he's had hip replacements, knee replacements. So literally he can just kick above his belt.
mm.
And even before that, he couldn't even do anything. So then flexibility wise, health wise, he says martial arts has changed his life in the last 2 years. I'm like, to hear a 76-year-old person say something that I do for a living changed his life, like that's what gets me to keep teaching. So
Oh my God, I'm emotional. Do you see me right now?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. That is
Yeah.
so great. I mean, um, I think I told you, like I used to be a figure skating coach.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure and I'm sure you're going to share with me right now, but there's there's a competitive side to any
Mm,
sport, right? But then, my coach who I grew up with is now in her mid 60s,
mm-hmm,
and now she coaches like she doesn't coach like the competitive level anymore. Like her kind of like heightened days were when I was training. But she works with a lot of adult skaters now
mm-hmm,
who just do it for the love of the sport,
mm-hmm.
and like it really has changed her life too. Like,
Yeah,
and and the people that she works with. So to hear stories like that, like, yeah, man, that's worth it. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
That's crazy. And you
yeah.
said the youngest is 3?
Yeah, so our 3-year-olds, they train twice a week, or we have classes for twice a week, and they only train one out of those two classes. And it's for 30 minutes because anything after
Right.
30 minutes, you're getting nothing out of it. I mean, we're lucky even if we get a full 30 minutes out of
Right.
them, where,
Right.
and we're not really teaching them martial arts. Like, we're not teaching them like your typical punze or taekwondo, like maybe Eli would do, but
Uh-huh.
it's more so to introduce them into taekwondo by
Okay.
teaching like gross motor skills and fine motor skills and a lot of activities and
Yeah.
repetitions. So
Yes.
that way, and structure and discipline. So that way, when they eventually work their way up into the higher level class, that's when we can start working on the technique and stuff. So
Oh,
yeah,
so important. That's so
yeah,
important. Are you so excited for your son to do taekwondo?
yeah. So like I told my wife's like, hey honey, she's like, honey, does Xander have to do taekwondo? I'm like, I'm not gonna force him. I mean, I'm not gonna like, but I would love for him to do it
Just
because I know,
expose him.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
because
yeah.
all the benefits that come with
Right.
taekwondo. So then, but I think I'm gonna like nudge him. He has to kind of get to black belt,
Mm-mm.
and then kind of like,
Just Try it
Yeah.
out.
Like where Eli's at, we're kind of like, think about recommitting after that. But yeah, no. When I do teach the 3-year-olds, so I just enrolled three Asian kids. So
Hmm.
it's the area that I'm at, there's not a lot of Asian families. So
Where are you at?
Vinings area,
Oh,
Cobb,
okay.
like in Cobb.
Yeah, yeah.
So predominantly a lot of my students are, white, Hispanic, black, and
Hmm.
just Indian. So, but
Hmm.
then you get a few like, Korean and Chinese. So then this past week, I actually got three, uh, one Korean kid and two Chinese kids. They're
Oh.
all 3 years old. So then, and they are terrified to get on the mat.
Oh
Like they
no.
don't want to do anything with Taekwondo martial arts.
Yeah.
But then I think the parents, me being, Asian also, so they trust me. So then for the past 4 weeks, um, I've just been sitting in the back with them,
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
every Saturday morning from 9 to 9:30. They're just sitting next to me and then
Yeah.
slowly building their trust. And then
Yeah.
this past Saturday, I was so excited because I finally got them to like take a class. Whether they did anything, they actually lined up, did like one or two drills, and then at the end of it, they were so excited, ran to the moms, and then like the parents were just like, "Thank you so much, Master Chun." Like, um, because they wanted to quit. They
Yeah.
did one class and they're like, "Oh, it's not for us."
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
like, just please trust me. Like, I guarantee
Mm-hmm.
you, I can get your child to
Mm-hmm.
like this. At least, get him on the mat. So then,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but yeah, so
Oh man,
I
I'm getting
enjoy,
emotional
yeah.
again.
Oh no.
I love these stories. Yeah, no, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I can't even it would be really challenging, I feel like, to get 3-year-olds to be
yeah.
open, and then like I don't know what your class is like, but Eli's class, like, they yell a lot,
Hmm.
and key up a lot. So I'm
Loud.
sure all
Yeah,
of it is very overwhelming. So
yeah.
that's great. But yeah, the patience that you have is that's really cool, which I'm sure you've learned over the years.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
Okay, so you get in, sorry, it got interrupted. You get
No.
in, do the admin stuff.
Yeah.
And then what time does class start?
So typically classes start anywhere from 3:30 and 4.
Mhm.
And then we pretty much teach classes all the way till like 7:30.
Whew.
Yeah. So it's just
Um
go, go, go from 3:30 to, let's just say, 3:30 to 7:30. So for
and
four
how
hours.
big are your classes normally?
On average, I would say like 12 to 16, just
Uh-huh.
depending on the age group,
Uh-huh.
the level of the class, but I would say comfortably like 12 to 16.
Okay. And do you have help?
I do. So I have a coworker who else
Okay.
is a master instructor also.
Uh-huh.
So between me and him, we teach all the classes, and then some of my high school students that are black belts that have been with me since they were 3, and now that they're
That
high schoolers,
that's
yeah.
good.
So they teach part-time. So now they don't teach like a full class because they're
Mm-hmm.
still kind of young and still learning.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to help them to like train them to teach. So then they'll help out here and there. So, but then for the most part, it's me and my coworker.
Um, sorry, I didn't ask you, do you run this school or
So it's not my school. I don't own the school.
uh-huh.
I manage it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I do everything like the operations. Literally, if I were to, the only thing I don't do is I don't have the liability of owning a school.
Okay.
But
Okay.
pretty
Okay.
much I do everything within the school. Yeah.
And is it like are there a few of the same schools in different locations?
Yeah, so we have two owners. The school is Tanchu Martial Arts. It's run by Grandmaster Chung and his business partner. And then we have four locations that there's four different other master instructors at each location
I see.
that manage it for them.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how did you come to work at this school?
So I mean, I guess we have some time, but
Yeah.
um, so originally I was out in California when I was like 19, 20. So I'm
Hmm.
skipping a lot in between that, but
Should we just
then
go to the beginning? Let's
we
just go to the
can.
beginning
Okay.
then. Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it.
All right. So originally I started martial arts when I was about 3 or 4, and then my parents got me into it because my brother, who's 9 years older than me, was doing it. And then,
Mm.
you know, I was the typical little brother that was hanging out. So the kwanjanim then was like, hey, you can come on the mat. And then, you know, I would just mess around here and there. And I did it for like, I think we did that. I think my mom said I did that for like a year and a half to 2 years.
Mhm.
And then that school shut down. So then instead of putting me and my brother into a different martial arts school that they didn't know,
Mhm.
um, I decided I wanted to play baseball. So then I did baseball for 6, 7 years. So then I was heavily involved with that, and I really loved it. I originally wanted to be my dream was to play in the majors. That
Oh,
was
wow.
like why I started baseball because I was like, oh, I'm gonna make it to the
Oh,
pros.
man, that's why you're so good at softball.
Oh no, no.
Okay,
I
makes
tried to
sense.
be, yeah.
Anyways.
Um, so then fast forward, uh, we from living in Atlanta, uh, we moved to Indiana.
Okay, so the
Middle,
when you first started martial arts, it was in Georgia?
it was in Georgia.
Okay, and then you moved to Indiana.
And then
Okay.
we moved to Indiana. We lived there for about a year and a half
Uh-huh.
because my dad wanted to be a pastor.
Oh, wow.
So there
Okay.
was a seminary school that he got into. And then after doing that for a year and a half, my dad was like, okay, this is not my calling. This is not what God's asking me to do. So then he moves all of us back to South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina,
Okay.
where I picked up martial arts again. So at that time, I was like
Oh.
12, 13.
Okay.
So then I found a school because the grandmaster then was attending our church, our parents' church, my parents'
Ah.
church. So
Okay.
then he looked at me, he goes, oh, he'd be really good at martial arts or taekwondo. So then I was like, sure, because I always enjoyed it.
Mm.
So then fast forward till I
So
was
okay, so like
19.
okay, sorry, just real quick.
Sorry.
So 12 no, 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 no. I hope you don't mind
No, no.
me interrupting, but like at 12 or 13, you know, when you said you decided to go back to the
Hmm.
sport, um like that was your choice then.
That was my choice then. Yeah.
Okay. But like
I wanted to do it.
I'm just curious, like you were like, yeah, okay. Cause like 12, 13 is kind of like, you know, you're entering your puberty years and
Hmm.
like, but you were like, yeah, I absolutely wanted to try it out again.
Yeah. So I, because they got me into part of, I loved sparring, the combative
Oh,
part,
okay, okay.
because I was, you know, I had a temper like a
Oh,
12,
yeah?
13 year old, you know, where I
Okay.
just would just get, because I have a sister in between. So I have a sister who's 13 months older than me.
Okay, okay.
So she knew how to press my buttons and
Oh.
she just knew how to get me to a point where I was just like, ah, you know,
Yeah.
which, you know, I'd never ever in my life ever laid a hand on my sister, but you know, I would punch pillows or,
Yeah.
you know, kick stuff. So, you know, I got to get my aggression out. So then when they told me I could spar and like fight
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
this person across from me without having to get in trouble,
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, this sounds fun.
Wow. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed because I love the sparring aspect and the competition,
I see.
the tournaments and all that. I really had a passion for that.
Gotcha.
So
And you're
then,
and I guess like with your past two, like you kind of always been on the more athletic side though, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Always did sports. Like my mom tried to get me into like art and music.
Uh-huh.
I liked art, but funny story with music, I did a piano class for like a week or two, and
Uh-huh.
then the piano teacher was like, "Sorry, I can't teach your son. Like
What?
he needs to be outdoors."
What?
And then refunded my mom her money back and
Shut
said,
up. That's so funny.
"I can't teach him."
I've
Like,
never heard that
yeah,
before. You
it's yeah. I couldn't sit in place and like play keys and you know, because the teacher would leave you in the room to
Uh-huh.
practice, and then she'll go to the other rooms where the other
Uh-huh.
kids are, you know.
Uh-huh.
So when I come back, I'm like off to the side doing something else
I
or
see. I see.
playing with like what's that
Metronome
the
thing? Yeah.
metronome thing? Yeah. So
That's funny. Okay, so you were saying 12 or 13, you went back to martial arts, and then you were saying fast forward a little bit.
yeah, so that's when I went in like just running, like guns
Oh
blazing,
yeah.
just hit the road, like not even like dip my toes in. I was full in training 7 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and like two, three times a day, and it was just go, go, go. And
Oh my God, so you
for
just loved it. You loved it.
oh yeah, I was completely like, this is what I was gonna do for the rest of my life. I was just gonna compete and fight, and this is what I wanted to do for the. So then, when I turned senior, my senior year, after I graduated, I was given a choice to go train in Korea,
Mm,
for 3 months with Gyeonggi-dae, the one of the top three Korean teams. And then my parents were hesitant because that was also the time when I should be going to college.
right.
But then because of the training, it was in between uh, fall and
Uh-huh.
spring semester.
Mm-hmm.
The advisor told me that technically, since I would miss so many days in between both semesters,
Mm-hmm.
it'd probably be better if I take a year off and then come back. And so that's what I did. So back in 2018, 2018, yeah, 18, um, I went to Korea for 3 months, trained there, and then I came back. Now, this is,
2018?
I'm sorry, 2008, 2008.
Huh,
Sorry.
I was like,
No,
what?
yeah, 2018 was just 4 years, like
Yeah.
yeah.
That really scared me for a second.
No, no, no,
um,
no.
okay, just real quick again. How does one
Mhm.
get an opportunity like that?
So the the 사부님, so my 관장님's wife, which it was a couple that ran the school. It was a
Okay.
grandmaster and a master. The wife graduated from Kyonggi-dae University.
Okay.
So then the coach there was her junior. So she had a foot in, and
And
because
then,
you're not,
okay.
yeah, no one can just go train with
Right.
Korea's like top national teams.
Right.
But then because of her, network, I was able to go train with them for 3 months.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So
Gotcha. Because you were that good.
I thought I was that good. And then when I went there, it was night and day. Like it was the Korean teams, like even like the worst player, the worst athlete was like 10 times better than me. And I thought I was pretty decent, like condition wise, training wise, skill wise, but I was nowhere near any of them. And
I mean, okay, it's hard for me to believe that, but I believe you. But at the same time, I guess it does speak volumes to the sport itself being from Korea. Like
yeah,
I guess it should be like that, but
no,
that's kind of very, I'm sure it was shocking for you.
hmm very.
Okay, so you went and then what happened?
So trained for 3 months, came back, and then I was like, all right, this is where I start my process to start trying to make the U.S. national team.
Oh.
So then, but then in between that time when I got back, um, I was burnt out,
Mm,
and I think I kept doing it because I was trying to make my dad and my mom and my grandmaster and master, the four people that were like closest to me, that
mhm,
that were my mentors or role models. I was trying to make them happy, and I
mm,
was forcing myself to keep doing something that I just got burnt out in, and I just kept pretending like it was something. It was just like a rut, or like
right.
I was going through like a phase, but then I truly just wanted to just take a break, but I was afraid to tell them that because I was going to disappoint them, because
Sure.
that was me saying I was quitting or I was giving up. So then I was afraid to do that. So
I
then,
see.
but then it got to a point where I just couldn't. You can only lie to yourself for so much until it just completely affects who you are.
Yeah.
So then, I got in a kind of a slight argument with my sabone, my master,
Uh-huh.
because I asked her, I was like, can I just take today off? Because I was just so tired. I was just like beat. And she's like, no. She's like, do you think people that are training, blah, 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 are taking days off? And I'm like, no. So then I was like, all right, whatever. So then, with like a half attitude, like a bad attitude, I was like training.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then my grandmaster came out and he goes, hey, if he's going to be like that, send him home. And then he's like, go home, take the day off. And then I was like, okay. So I got in the car, and then I immediately called my brother and was like, "Home, I can't do this anymore."
Oh no.
Like he's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And he's like, and this is me living in Greenville, and at that
Mm,
time my brother was living in Atlanta still. So
mm,
he's like, I was like, "Home, I just can't do it." Like he's like, I'm afraid to go home because dad and mom's gonna ask me, "Why are you home? Why are you back home so early?"
mm.
So then he's like, "Well, just come to my house." So then I drove to Atlanta that day. And then
What?
my brother called my dad and my mom and said, "Hey, this is what happened. Steven's gonna spend a day or two with me. He's gonna come back home. When he
Mm,
does, just listen to him. Don't like tell him like you need to go back or." So then at that point, that's when I took a break. So then my parents were like, "Okay, if this is what you want to do, we support you, but you have to
mm,
do something." So then I was like, "Well, I have to go back to school. Like, well, I'm not gonna do nothing with my life."
mm.
So then um, I did a year and a half of community college, and then I was like, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So then I was actually going to join the military.
Oh.
So I was looking into joining the Marines at that time, and then like right when I was like finally like okay, I'm just going to I'm just going to join the Marines. My friend from California called me, and he was like, "Hey, Steven, like, what are you up to these days?" I'm like, working, thinking about joining the military. He goes, "What? Don't do that. Don't waste your life doing
Mm,
that." He's like, "I just opened up a school in California. Why don't you come out and just come visit me, help me?" I was like, "I can't." I was like, "I'm burnt out. Like, I don't want to do
mm,
this." He's like, "Well, just come visit me." He was like, "I'll even buy you your plane ticket. Just come out and just have some fun with me for like a month, since you're not doing anything anyways." I was like, "Sure." So then when I went out there, I re-found my love in martial arts via teaching because instead of competing, I went back to teaching more. So then he helped me introduce me back into my passion of why I kind of always did martial arts because while I was training and competing too, I
mm.
would always teach at the school.
Mhm.
So that was like my way of paying for private lessons with
I was
my
gonna ask you
yeah
that.
with my kwanjanim and sabanim.
Mm,
So then it was like I was like an indentured servant where
right.
I taught like all the classes.
Mm,
But then in return, I was able to get one-on-one training. So then that now we're in 2011, 2012. So
okay.
21. So about that time, I'm like 21, 22.
Okay. Oh, what year?
Unfortunately,
How old are you?
I'll be 33 in June.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was born in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm young.
Oh no, yes, you are young.
um, so then did that, but then unfortunately, things didn't work out in California just because, as you know, California is very expensive.
Yes.
Um, the money I was making was nowhere near to help
Mm,
cover any type of livelihood that I would expect to live while I was out there.
mhm.
Because, you know, my friend just started his own business too. So it's not like he can pay me,
Sure, sure.
you know. So then um, I just was honest with him and said, "Hey, I can't do this. Like, I can't keep working here. I just it's not for me." And then we kind of had a fallout because he was like, "What do you mean? You know, like
Mm,
I helped you like get here. Like I do this for you and do that for you." And like
mm,
basically, I was very I needed him to like buy food, gas, like just daily things, routine things that as a 21, 22 year old, like
yeah.
you can't expect someone else to like provide for you. Especially if you're like, you know, as a namja, like you can't. Like that's also like a pride thing. So then
Mm,
moved back to Greenville. So then again, now I'm back to square one where I was again, where it's like I gotta find something. So then my sister was like, "Why don't you just go back to school?" I was like, my friends are already like, you know, like 2 years, 3 years into school. Like, I got to start all over. So then I worked at like an online, like a Etsy store. like
Okay.
it's like an Etsy business. Like they
Uh-huh.
did Etsy, eBay, like they made phone cases. So
Okay.
yeah, so then I got into building,
So
making
random.
yeah, making customized phone cases. And then I get a random call one day from who is my grandmaster today, Grandmaster Chung,
Okay.
Tony Chung.
Okay.
I get a call from him, and I'm like, "Hello." He's like, "Hey, is this Steven?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Who is this?" He goes, "Oh, I got your number from your friend who works at the AT&T store, which I have a hyong who works at an AT&T store at the H Mart Doorville." So then, yeah, I was like, "What?" I was like, "Wait, timeout." He goes, "Yeah." He said, you're black belt in Taekwondo." I was like, "Oh, yes, sir." He's like, "Well, do you want to come work for me in Atlanta?" I'm like, "Oh, no, no." I was like, "I can't." I was like, "I'm burnt." I was like, "I don't think I'm gonna do this." He's like, "I just got done working out in Cali." He goes, "Oh yeah, I know your friend out in Cali too." And I was like, "Oh, what a small world." So then for 6 months, Blair, every Saturday, he called me whether I picked
What?
it up or left a voicemail. So I thought at this point I was like, this guy's crazy. Like,
Right.
but then he really needed instructors.
Mm.
So then he finally was like, hey, sir, like, okay, I get it. You don't want to come down and work for me. He's like, at least I would love to see you in person. And like, let me at least buy you lunch. So then at that time, I was going back down to Atlanta a lot because I had, friends living in Atlanta. So I was driving back to Atlanta and Greenville a lot. So then I was like, sure. I was like, I'll be in Atlanta X weekend.
Okay.
So I go there and then I have lunch with him. And I'm still not kind of like, eh.
Mm.
I was like, I don't know if I still want to do martial arts. He goes, well, just think about it. I would love for you to meet my family because at that time he had two sons there who were Malika and Elijah were, I think they were like 3 and 2. So
Okay.
they were like itty bitty, like
Uh-huh.
babies. So then I was like, sure, sir. Like, I was like, I mean, he bought me lunch and like he even gave me gas money to go back. So I was like, all right, sir. I was like, all right, the least I could do is come see your fam. So then the weekend after that, I came back down again to see him again. And
Uh-huh.
then I actually went to church with him. And
Uh-huh.
then he took me to church because I said I'm a Christian also. So then he took me to lunch and I saw who he was as not a kwanjanim or like a typical master
Mm.
which I was hurt by, twice in
Yeah.
when I first started and then the school out in California. I saw him as a person. I saw him as a father and a husband.
Mm.
And I was like, man, I was like, that's what I want. Like
Mm.
besides anything else, like, you know, making money or the materialistic things, like I was like, I would love to have a family like that one day. So I was like, sir, I'll give me a month. I was like, let me pray.
Mm.
Because at that point I was in a point in my faith where I started relying on God more.
That's awesome.
As a younger adult, you know, unfortunately, like on the weekends I'd party and things like that. So then I was never myself to go to church, and then I was just hurt by church and
Sure.
hurt by God,
Yeah.
and then um, but then when I moved out to Cali, that kind of changed where my faith was restored because I
Mm.
found a church that I really loved.
Really?
And yeah, it was called Acts, a church that serves. So it was very different than your typical Korean like church that you go to because your parents made you,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
like stuff like that. So
Yeah.
then I prayed about it for a month and then I was like, God was like, I think this is it, Stephen. Like you're gonna have to go back to Atlanta and start teaching martial arts again. So then now fast forward 10 years. Um, yeah, so that's where brings me here to
So
this
this
day
was
where
2012, 2011, you said?
2012, 2000, yeah,
That's crazy. Okay,
yeah.
so where do I want to start here?
I know that was a
First
lot.
of
Sorry,
all,
Blair.
no, first of all, like I mean, I this your journey truly for
Hmm.
me, I like resonate in many areas with it, and so I'm so grateful for your transparency, Stephen.
Hmm.
I know that it sounds like there's been a lot of heartache and a lot
Mhm.
of what could have been resentment towards the sport itself and
Mhm.
the people that come along with it. And it sounds like, I mean, redemption to the fullest, which I
Yeah.
love. And again, I can relate to many of those things. But man, in the even the part where you're sharing about your family,
Mhm.
um, okay, I do want to touch on this for a second, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You said you were like worried about the disappointment.
Mhm.
But you did love the sport for many years.
Mhm.
You were burnt out, but was it because like of like the pressure of like competition or like what was the burning out point for you? I'm just like curious.
It was the pressure from my dad. So my dad was your typical Korean, like you're not good enough. Like I
Mm,
was winning gold. Like I would like in the state of South Carolina, I was undefeated. No one in South Carolina beat me ever.
that's
And like I would go
crazy.
out to national tournaments and I'd still win gold. But my
Mm,
father's like, "Oh, how did you still get hit?"
isn't that the
I'm
worst?
like, "Dad, I'm like, it's a combative sport." He was, "You should do a low block and like block it." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Are you?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's crazy."
Yes. And then you'd be like, you go
Oh
out
yeah,
there.
I was like, "I'll bug ahead," you know. I was
Yeah.
like, "You do it."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then so it was a lot of that, but also for from 13 till 19,
Uh-huh.
so for 6 years, I didn't have a social life. Like
Mm.
I had to sacrifice many things where, especially you're going into high school, so
Mhm.
going to movies with friends, hanging out with friends, Friday night football or, you know, a weekend trip to the mountains to go hiking or go hang out at the pool during the summer. Like
Not
during the
even an
summer, oh yeah,
option.
during the summer I was sweating, working out inside the schools,
Mm,
and training 3 times a day. And
yeah.
I didn't have the option to go have fun. And, hindsight, that's what you have to, I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
Olympians and high level athletes all gave up just for that. But a mixture of that plus the pressure and the constant, I guess, negative reinforcement my dad was doing, it
Oh, my
just,
parents called it constructive criticism.
oh, I,
And I was like, it's not
no,
constructive.
I was like, Dad, that's negative
Yeah.
reinforcement.
Oh
So
man, I want to cry, Steven. That
yeah.
is, oh,
So for 6 years of doing that, 7 days a week, it took a toll.
yeah.
And all I wanted was just a break. And
Yeah.
maybe they as adults, as an adult now, if I could tell my 19-year-old self all over again, I think I wish I had someone to kind of tell me in a better way where I understood it, of why I
Mm,
needed to keep doing this instead of telling me I had to do this.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I think the whole part of like almost telling me and forcing me that I couldn't take a break,
mm-hmm.
it even made me hate it more,
Right.
just to like disconnect everything with it. I mean, it was to a point where my dad was like, if you're gonna quit, like quit. Like he's like, because my dad did kondo, which is kendo, the bamboo sword.
Oh
And my
man.
dad did that when he was younger, but he gave that up because, you know, history, uh, our generation of parents and grandparents were not fond of Japanese people.
Right, right.
So when he found out it was taught by the Japanese people, like he's like, "Oh, I don't want to do this." So he's like, "I even broke my kendo sword. I burnt my clothes." Like he's like, "If you're gonna quit, show me you're gonna quit." And that's me again, 19,
Yikes.
stubborn, prideful,
Yeah.
a lot of ego.
Yeah.
I took all my trophies, my medals, awards, threw it in the tailbit of my dad's truck, and then went to the dumpster and just threw it all out.
Shut up.
I swear to you. And then I was like, "See, Appa, I told you." I was like, when I said I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna quit.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
because I'm a very if you get to know me more and my friends and my close like circle, I'm a very uh, what's it called? Not realistic, but not Ah,
Logical?
no. What's it when you tell me something and I actually believe you because that's why because you told me that? It's oh my goodness, what's the word?
I don't know, naive.
Um,
I mean, I'm the same way. Like, I don't
I'm
need proof of like something. Is that what you
mhm.
mean? Like,
No, like if you told me like, hey, uh, I need you to go park the car down the street because it's gonna the tires are gonna be bad.
okay,
Or like I'm very not practical. Oh my gosh, what's the word? It's gonna kill me now because my wife tells me it all the time.
I don't know. I don't know the word.
Oh,
Okay, but then do you go park the car?
yeah, no, if she tells me to do it, I'll do it because she told me to
Oh,
do it. But she's like, it's a joke, Steven. Like, I'm being sarcastic. What's the opposite of sarcasm?
I
Oh
don't.
my goodness.
I
It's
don't
gonna
know.
kill me. I gotta look. I don't know.
What does it start with?
Hold on. It's the opposite of being sarcastic. What's the opposite of being sarcastic? Not practical, not realistic. Oh my goodness.
Is it uh oh, is it pragmatic?
Um, let me see.
Pragmatic is what I think it is. Dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations.
Oh my goodness, this is gonna kill me. But
It's
anyway,
not
I
pragmatic?
no, it's not pragmatic. It's
Okay. Okay, hopefully it'll
uh
come to you.
it'll come to me. If it comes to me, I'll tell you.
Yeah, just tell me.
But
Just
yeah,
tell me.
basically if you tell me to do something, I'm gonna do it because like you told me to do it. So when
Okay.
my dad told me this is how he quit, I was like, well, I'm gonna do the same.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so
That's crazy.
yeah.
That's so you
So all my I don't have any trophies or like I had so many trophies and medals. I have zero of that to this day now.
okay, so
Only
like I know
pictures.
like our treasure is in heaven and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but I mean again, as a fellow athlete,
hmm
sure, they're just things,
hmm
but they're things that you worked your ass off to get.
Yeah, I know. I I regret it because like, again, those are things I worked very hard,
Yeah.
but then in an instant of frustration and anger, I threw it all out.
Okay.
Years and years and
I
years
don't
of
know why
it.
that's so shocking for me. It's just like I mean
Yeah.
like it's just because you were so fed up
Yeah.
that you did this and
hmm
then but then like God like redeemed you, you know? I just
Yeah,
love it so much. That's
I
so
know.
great. That's so great. So thank God for your grandmaster, what Tony you said?
Yeah, Grandmaster Chung. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but can I talk about your competitive years for a second?
Yeah, for sure.
So like what was I'm very curious to what that was like for you. Like do you remember your first competition?
Yeah, there's my mom actually showed me a picture of it where I was like a white belt and just
Uh-huh.
like at my first tournament,
Uh-huh.
nervous wreck, like all this, you know, excitement, but things like being very anxious to like get in the ring
Mm.
to like
Mhm.
finally like show off what I practiced.
Mhm.
But I won. So then ever since I was always younger and or beginner, my at that time my grandmaster would always make me fight better people or higher level. So
Mm.
like there was like you don't see white belts at competitions because it's like you're a beginner, like what do you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I was a white belt fighting against green belts, which means they're technically like two belts
Yeah.
higher than you.
Yeah.
And I was winning. I was fighting them, beating them. And like I remember that tournament, these referees were like, what's a white belt doing here? Like, and then I got in the
Oh.
ring And then I just started beating up on the green belts, and then the ref was like, "Oh my gosh, do y'all like?" They were talking like, "Look at this white belt beating up these green belts,"
That's crazy.
and then the green belts were like, "How am I losing to a white belt?"
Right,
Like,
right, right.
so then,
Oh my goodness.
but yeah, so then you know that's how I started, and then I started really liking it because you know everyone likes it when you're winning.
Sure.
It's always more fun when you
Yeah,
win.
absolutely.
So then, but yeah, so I would say on average, during the during my like 6, 7 years of competing,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably go to 2 tournaments a month,
Mm,
whether they were in South Carolina, North Carolina, um, Georgia.
mm-hmm.
So then, any of those 3 states, I was just going up and down on the weekends, going to tournaments. And then when I started getting higher level up, I did tournaments in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut, or Massachusetts, Florida, Texas, Cali,
Wow.
California. So then
That's
I started
really
actually traveling a lot more. Yeah.
okay. Um, in your like when you start competing and stuff and doing that, do you kind of see the same competitors where you go?
Yeah. So especially locally or within the South,
Uh-huh.
um, um, when I would go to the tournament, you have a bracket. So then the brackets are already made because like it's who's already registered and weighed it. Because there's weight classes too when we
Mm-hmm.
compete. So then I remember I get to a point where people started recognizing my name.
Mm-hmm.
So then kids and the coaches will come up to my coach, which it's a lot of Korean grandmasters and masters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They would be like, "Hey, Stevens, coach, like, can you tell Steven to like take a little easier?
No.
So and so is just
No.
starting. Like he fought Steven last time, and then he just wants to get back into it." Or they were like, "Yeah, yeah," so my coach would actually tell me like, "Take it easy, like be lighter," and then I'd be like, and the other
Like
thing
take
is,
it easy.
yeah, so I'd be like, "Yes, ma'am." I was like, "Nah," I was like, but then the moment they like start thinking that they're better, my coach would like give me like a signal, and then that means like let loose. So
Yeah.
so then that was fun too. So
Wow.
yeah,
Man, undefeated. That's crazy to me. I just feel like, I mean, the time and energy and money and everything that
yeah.
had gone into it for you, for your training to get to that caliber. I mean, I don't know if anyone could, I mean, unless you're in it, right? But like really understand. I don't understand, obviously, but
Hmm.
I can imagine. And, um, didn't you feel okay? Like, I'm asking because I felt this way, but like, there's that point where you kind of explained it, right? Like when you were contemplating. So, oh, so did you go to school? Like,
So I only went for a year and a half to a
okay,
community college, yeah.
uh
But
huh,
then other than that, I never finished. I don't have
okay,
a college degree, yeah.
okay. So, but like, when you were in this like college phase, and then like even just kind of feeling really just uncertain after the California stuff, like, was it low for you? Like, did you feel resentful, or what did you feel?
Yeah, I felt like I I waste like not going to school,
아까니까, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then like, cause I see my friends graduating and they have a college degree and like,
Mm,
getting what you call a big boy paycheck, like working at
mm,
companies. And and till this day, sometimes that's just a passing thought. It's like, did I still make the right choice? Like, the right
mm.
career, just because, you know, I see my friends, having very stable corporate jobs and all this.
Sure.
But then, vice versa. My best friends to this day, um, since we were 13, they are like, dude, we're envious of you. Like
Yeah,
now that we're older and we have families of our own and we have kids, like they're still working 40 to 50 hours a week.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, I'm in a position in my life now where on paper, I work 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
And that's on paper, but then the actual hours I'm actually working is maybe 10 hours because of
Mm.
the teaching and like,
Right.
working and building the school to where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, yeah, when I first started the school, we had zero students. So
Mm-hmm.
I was working easily 50, 60 hours a week
Mm-hmm.
trying to grow the school. But
Mm-hmm.
then 10 years later, like I'm at a point where the school is running itself with helpers and other coworkers and things like that. So, but yeah, no, to answer your question, Blair, like there were parts of me where I was like, maybe I should have finished school and just to have that in like in my hand, so
Mm-hmm.
that way, worst case scenario, I can always fall back on it.
Mm.
But no, I mean, till this day, I know God brought me back to martial arts
Yeah.
because He knew there was a reason of me. And my grandma thinks it's because she thinks I should be a pastor because like I'm very good at teaching. I'm a people
Yeah.
person. But then I already told Pastor Jay, I was like, I don't want that responsibility. I'm okay with the
Never
responsibility
say
of, yeah,
never, Steven.
I know, which is crazy. So, but, yeah, so no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, I was just wondering. Um, but I okay, next question.
yeah,
When you went to go talk to your parents
hmm
after those 2 days in Georgia with your brother,
hmm
um, so they did listen, I guess, and
hmm
they let you do what you want to do. But like, what was the reaction from your dad? Like, was it what you thought, or was it like better than you thought?
it was better than I thought. It was more so like, okay, all right, okay, all right, son, like, all right, what do you want to do then? And then I
Mm.
said, I'll go to school. He goes, okay, sounds good to me. He goes, looks at my mom, are you okay with that? She goes, yeah. And then
좀
year and a half,
무서운데. I'm a little
I
it's
know,
kind of scary.
I'm like, is this, you guys are tricking me? But the crazy thing about that too, Blair, was after a year and a half of me going to school and my
Mm.
parents not saying anything, they never said, you sure you don't want to go back to Taekwondo? Like, you sure you don't
Mm.
want to do do that again? They never said that ever.
Mm.
I'm the one that came back to them and said, hey, so you guys okay with me going out to California to help out with to teach them like, go back to Taekwondo again?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. I was like, wait, what? Like, I quit doing it. And then
Right.
you guys were like, well, if you're gonna quit, then quit and stuff like that.
Throw out
But
your trophies and quit.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then the crazy thing that my parents told me was like, we always knew you'd go back to doing Taekwondo. Like
Mm.
they knew. So then I was like, what? I was like, it blows my mind. And then because they just always knew that I just loved it. Like I genuinely
Right.
loved it.
Yes.
And it went from being a competitor to a teacher.
Mm.
So now that I'm older, um, I truly love the teaching aspect
Mm.
of watching kids, who are shy come out of their shell
Yeah.
and having more confidence in themselves, or kids that are, have more energy and
Mm.
that need to learn how to have more self-control and
Mm.
self-discipline,
Mhm.
them learning how to find that out. And then breakthroughs where, so this kid for the longest time was having trouble, breaking a board, or then now they're finally have the confidence to be able to do it without ever doubting themselves and things like that. So I think that's my joy is when a student starts, when they get to black belt and then they pursue after black belt.
Mm.
And it just because, that's years of their lives that I'm part of. So like
Mhm.
a lot of my students, I've known them since like I've known the majority of their lives, and you become a community like role model, I guess, or a mentor. So
Mm.
then now that I'm older too, like when I first ran to school, I was 23. So as a 23-year-old,
It's
like,
crazy.
you know, I have parents that are, older than me or
Right, right.
could be my parents
Sure.
also bringing their kids in. And I'm telling them like I know how to raise your child through taekwondo better than you. So for a while, like I didn't have a lot of self-confidence in myself when it came to that aspect. But then now that I'm older too, as I get older and I have my own family and becoming a husband, now a father,
Mhm.
um, I think I'm entering a different level of teaching where now I understand the other side of the coin.
Love it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it gives me even more passion of like where would I be 10 years now? Like 10
Yeah.
years down the road, where am I going to be again? You
Right,
know?
right. Yeah, no, I
So
I couldn't agree more. I just what you said about just the invested time, like seeing the fruits of that is
yeah,
like such a reward.
of course.
As you were talking, it reminded me, I don't know if this is a dumb question, and I'm sorry if it is, but like I know that you have a lot of experience in teaching. So, like,
Hmm.
I'm sure it came naturally to you even when you opened your own school and started managing it, as far as like teaching a class. But
Hmm.
I'm curious, like, do other like masters that open schools and stuff, like, do they get their teaching experience the same way? Or is there like a school you go to learn how to teach too,
No,
in addition to? Or,
no, no. It's all taught as you grow, like through the grapevine. So
okay.
you learn via like if I like let's for instance like Eli starts learning under me,
Mm-hmm.
like I start learning him how to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And not only because him being 6 turning 7, he could almost about to be a black belt, he could come help out with like the 4 or 5 year old class where he could help demonstrate, he could
Oh.
help show certain movements and techniques. And then to a child that sees another child doing it, it makes more sense than an adult telling them, this is how it's supposed to be.
Mm.
And then that's how I started to teach, where I was the example, where, and then eventually I learned how to teach it.
Mhm.
And then, now that I've done it for so many years, if I wanted like my junior instructors now, I want them to get to a point where they can teach a full class without me having to be there.
Yeah.
So,
So what do you think makes a good taekwondo teacher?
good question. I think you have to have a lot of patience,
Mm.
and you have to have a lot of just care for what you do.
Mm.
I think um, even if you're really good at doing martial arts yourself,
Mhm.
if you don't have the patience and if you don't have I guess just the love of seeing your fruits of your labor, I think I don't think you can be a good teacher because you're going to get frustrated, because that student is not learning it as fast as you hope they would,
Mhm.
or they're not learning it at all because they're not as good as you. So then I think I would say, yeah, patience and
Mm.
just just love doing what you do, whether it's teaching a basic form or an advanced form.
Mhm.
Teach it like if it's like that child's first time ever learning something new. And
Mm.
I think if you can do that gradually, it that becomes norm, where now it's like you can just do what you do and it just happens.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um, which by the way, I don't know how you guys memorize all those forms.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
kind of
lot.
crazy.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a like master and grandmaster? Just
It's
testing?
just
Okay.
not well, experience and
Uh-huh.
age and rank. So typically you don't become a grandmaster until you get seventh degree black belt.
Okay.
So after seventh degree, you're pretty much moving on into your 50s,
Okay. Okay.
entering 60s sometimes. So
I
ninth
see.
is the highest.
Right,
So
I've heard that.
by that time,
What are you?
honest, I'm a fifth degree black belt.
Jeez. It's not
so
normal. Okay.
so by the time you get to like 6, 7, and 8 and 9, it's more so not testing, like
Uh-huh.
physically testing on it, but it's more so like, what you gave back to martial arts.
I
And
see.
as a honor, like we promote you to seventh degree
I
grandmaster.
see. I mean, like at our school, I know they have like they even make the black belts like do volunteer hours and
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, we do too.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Man, don't tell Eli's school this, but I wish we lived in Vinings, and then then we would totally go. Because I just love your heart, Stephen.
Yeah.
I'm so I feel like your students, they have no idea how good they have it, truly.
Hmm.
And I mean that.
Thank you.
I would like to know though, before we're kind of rounding out our hour together, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure I could talk to you for much longer, but
Hmm.
for the sake of your time and the time of our listeners, um, I'm curious, like, is there anything you don't like about what you do?
Um, so that's a question my grandmaster asked me. He goes, like, what do you, so the other question was like, what do you like about martial arts? I
Uh
was like, oh, I
huh.
love teaching.
Uh
He
huh.
goes, then do it for free. And I'm like, oh, wait, time, time. I was like, I can't do it for free.
Yeah.
So then to answer your question, Blair, running the business side, it's a whole different realm than the
Mm.
teaching side. If I could choose what I wanted to, I would just want to teach all the
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
have someone else run the business.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then the part that I don't like, in part two part questions, is the business side where you
Mhm.
have to like get enrollments, or you have to talk to a parent that's disgruntled or
Yeah.
says, "Oh, we don't want to come anymore because you guys are too expensive, or we're paying this much money and Johnny hasn't improved, but
Mm.
they've been taking a class for a month. Like,
Right.
what do you what do you
Right.
expect?" So
Right.
then the customer service of having to talk to those parents, the one out of 40 parents that don't like us, and I'm a very people pleaser too, so like it affects me of who I am when I have to have those conversations,
Mhm.
because I want to help them out as much as I can, but at the same time we're running a business.
Right. Of course.
And then part two to that other one is, the from the teaching side, is I genuinely have a very hard time teaching whiny kids. So when I have a whiny kid, I'm just like, "Oh my goodness." I'm like,
Like red flags all.
yeah, I pray to God, like, my son doesn't grow up to be whiny,
I know.
but I
I
think, be careful what you wish for too, so then this is my joke, is where God gives you things because he knows you don't want it, but you need it.
Yeah. It's called discipline, yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, so to answer your question, Blair, it's just, for the most part, I like everything that I do,
Uh-huh.
but then when it comes to certain business parts of uh,
Sure.
the my career, and then the some of the teaching where you just have to teach those kids that are just there are kids that are just bad. They're like, anything that I do, anything I can do, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this kid is just like, I had a kid screaming in my office for an hour.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
because I'm very like, I'm gonna win, like that
Right, no, I
winning.
feel you.
Yeah,
I love
like,
it,
you're
yeah.
not gonna beat me. Like, it
Yeah.
was a 4-year-old. I'm like, I'm not letting a 4-year-old think like he can beat me. So then I let him scream in my office for an hour, and
That's
then
crazy to me.
yeah, and then he stopped, and then he's like, I was like, "You done?" And he goes, "Yes, sir." I was like, "Okay, you want to talk to me now?" He goes, "Yeah." And then parents were like, "We're so sorry." I'm like, "No, it's okay." I was like, "That's part of my job. Is like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, you guys bring him here because, well, discipline's not at home. We help enforce it, but
Right,
then,
right.
um, yeah, just there's days like that where you just come home and you're like, "Oh my God, I don't wanna have kids." Like, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I see.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's tough. That's tough, especially when they're not your kid either. It's
Oh,
like
I
I
know.
don't know, actually. Sometimes it's easier when they're not my kid, to be
Uh-huh.
honest, but but at this point, and with your school and stuff, you take ownership of your class too, so I can
Yeah.
only imagine.
Yeah.
Um Okay. So I usually ask my guests, to kind of end the conversation is, do you have any advice? Like it could be, advice for, maybe there's a young student listening that's like, "Hey, I love taekwondo. This is what I want to do." Maybe you have advice for them, or just any life advice at all.
Um, Life advice, maybe I'll say more about the life advice because I
Yeah.
don't know if there's, a lot of people that are like, "Hey, I wanna be a Tae Kwon Do Master
You
instructor."
never know.
I know. But, if you do, I would say make sure it's a passion and something
Mm,
that you truly do love doing day in, day out, and make sure the days that are better outweigh more than the days that you don't like doing it.
Mm,
But as a life advice, I would just say for any young listeners that are listening, I mean, this could be like a very generic, maybe just broad answer is find something you do just because, uh, find something that you want to do for the rest of your life and don't always chase like the money aspect because I think a
mm,
lot of the younger versions is instant gratification where they need the money or they want that salary, they want that six-figure salary.
yeah.
If you do what you love, you put in the passion and the effort, that will come with everything you do. And I think if that's the biggest thing I can help ease and help learn and just help the younger generations just mentally too, is just don't don't chase money. I mean, money's nice, like don't get me wrong. I love money, but then if you always are chasing the next paycheck, you'll never genuinely be happy. So
Mm,
go the opposite. Find something
yeah.
that you enjoy doing and then make it into a business or make it lucrative financially and that it can align with what you do for the rest of your life.
Yeah. No, I love that. And honestly, this is why I started the podcast too, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and what you said about that instant gratification, it's like my soapbox, honestly.
Hmm.
I'm like, even okay, like, you know, Eli's 6, and even I find myself to be try to be intentional of like, because you know, we didn't have Netflix growing
Yeah.
up. You know, you can't just like you have to wait. If it says to
Yeah.
be continued, you have to
Yeah.
wait a week, you
Yeah.
know, to watch
Uh-huh.
it. Eli just started, not just started, but he's into Pokemon, and so you know, there's a lot of to be continued,
Yeah, yeah.
and so like, he'll watch the next one, but sometimes he'll fast forward, and I'm like, put that remote down. Like,
Oh,
you do not
yeah.
fast forward through the parts you don't like. Like, that is
Uh-huh.
not life. That's not, you know,
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to teach my kid life lessons through
Yeah.
screen time. I'm like, we don't fast, and my husband too, we don't fast forward. You
Hmm.
cannot fast forward through your life, okay?
Hmm. Hmm. I like
But it's
that.
so, but I realize like even those things is contributing to what we just like instant
Yeah.
gratification, right? Like how culture is changing, how with each generation it's
Hmm.
getting progressively different, and like from when we were growing up, and things, even small things like that, I realize are triggering those things, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I can't. Why can't I? We can just do it faster. Like, and
Yeah.
um I don't have to wait a week to watch the next what to be continued. And I'm like, that is so crazy, you know, like,
Uh-huh.
um, and yes, but yes, I completely agree. And thank you for sharing that really sound advice, Stephen. And I'm just so grateful again for your story. Was there anything that I missed that you kind of wanted to share that I didn't touch on?
No, I think that's for the most part.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me share that, Blair. It
Yeah,
was
of
it was
course.
fun. That was
Good,
exciting.
good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Well, sorry to put you on the spot, but I do ask people to like, if there's anyone that listened to this episode that is like, hey man, Steven's really cool. I just want to know more about his story. Or if they're like, I want to go do martial arts with him in Vinings, would you
Mhm.
be okay with me keep putting you in touch with them?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So guys, you heard it. If you have any questions for Steven or anything you want to say about this episode, feel free to DM me on social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Steven, thank you so much again. Thanks
Yeah.
for listening, everybody. Until next time, peace.